the person next to you. Say, I recognize the God in you. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together.
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 We come together in the name of love.
We come together.
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 We come together in the name of love.
Take a look at the person next to you. Say, God loves you and I love you too. Now feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together.
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 We come together in the name of love.
We come together.
We come together.
Come together.
We come together.
Come together.
We come together in the name of love. In every walk of life.
Every walk of life.
Every creed and color.
Every creed and color.
In kinship we unite.
Oh,
In honor of the God and each other. Oh, take a look at the person next to you. Say namaste and I bow to you. Feel the love in the sanctuary. Lift your voice and repeat after me. We come together. We come together. Come together. In the name of love.
we come together.
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 We come together in the name of love.
We come together.
We come together.
Come together.
We come together.
We come together.
We come together in the name of love.
We come together.
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 We come together in the name of love.
Aloha.
Aloha.
We welcome you to Unity Church of Hawaii. We're so glad you decided to join us this morning. We'd like to now invite you to please stand as you are able. Let's release and let God.
I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life, and my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God.
Woo! Whoa, yes, I am only here for God. I release and I let go. Whew, I'm feeling it. Good morning, good and glorious morning, and welcome. Welcome to Unity Church of Hawaii. We're centered in God, absolutely centered in God. We elevate global consciousness through the realization of oneness. I'm so delighted to look out into this audience and see the light of the divine shining back at me. How beautiful each and every one of you are, sharing and shining your divine light on this day and in every day and in every way. Here at Unity, we are a spiritual, educational, and healing movement where we welcome all people on all spiritual paths. We absolutely recognize and absolutely respect all people. And that means that we are a diverse community. And yet in our diversity and in all the things that we bring to the table, the thing that we teach and that we know is that we are one united state of consciousness. And that is the consciousness of love. That is the consciousness of oneness. That is the consciousness of truth. And our co-founders, Myrtle and Charles Fillmore, they went out and they shared and they taught about that oneness principle. And they said, you have within you everything you need. And they taught us how to claim that for ourselves by teaching what they called statements of truth. And today we call those statements of truth positive affirmations. And here at Unity, we like to practice the principles, and we like to prepare ourselves with a little positive affirmation. And so if you'll join me this day, take a deep breath and repeat after me. I practice the principles. I practice the principles of unity oneness, of unity oneness. I release that which no longer serves me. I release that which no longer serves me. And I embrace the truth of who I am. And I embrace the truth of who I am. I am love. I am love. I am light. I am light. I am joy. I am joy. And now, friends, if you'll bring your love, light, joyful selves up and greet your neighbors with a little aloha.
You are able. And we want you to feel and know this one thing, that God is going to turn it around in you.
God's going to turn it around in you. God's going to turn it around in you. Your situation is just an equation that only God can solve. So open up your heart. God's gonna turn it around in you. God's gonna turn it around in you. God's gonna turn it around in you. God's gonna turn it around in you.
God's gonna turn it
around in you.
Your situation, just an equation
that only God can solve. So open up your heart. God's gonna turn it around in you.
God's gonna turn
it around in you.
Oh yeah.
God's gonna turn it around in you.
And all you got to do
is feed your faith and starve your doubt. God's working it out. So feed your faith
turn it around in you, and God's turning it around in us as well. Welcome to Unity Church of Hawaii on this beautiful Sunday morning. Yeah, we're in Hawaii. Sometimes it just hits me out of nowhere that we are one of the most beautiful places in the world, and what a blessing it is to share this experience with each and every one of you. And also, during that love fest, that hug fest, that handshake, high five fest, you might have noticed that there was somebody that you've noticed for the first time here, or somebody that you haven't seen in a long time. So if this is your first time here at Unity Church of Hawaii, or your first time in a long time, we invite you to stand so that we may shower you with gifts of aloha. So if this is your first time in a long time, please stand. Our ushers will be bringing to you, dear one, a kukui nut lei. And also a welcome packet. So if we could get her a welcome packet as well, that would be great. Yes, and so our wonderful Don Farmer, who doubles as an usher as well, will be bringing to you a welcome packet. And inside that welcome packet is a voucher for a free breakfast. So after today's... Yes, please remain standing if you feel to do so. After today's service, just go down the steps through the courtyard or through Connection Central to the courtyard, and there you can receive your free meal. And then this is also our invitation to welcome her in and to tell her all about this transformational movement and what Unity has done for your individual lives as well. So let us also give her a wonderful blessing. So together, the light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. Mahalo for joining us today. You may have a seat. And joining us today as well are our online streamers. So let us give a great shaka welcoming them. They're streaming from all over, from Atlanta, Chicago, Philippines as well, down under in Australia, New Zealand, as well as Germany. And we have some Canadian folks as well. So mahalo for your continued support on our online ministry. We appreciate you for coming and sitting with us, even if it's long distance, and we can feel your love as well. So today I will be joined on platform by religious science practitioner Cindy Hensley, beautiful Cindy, and giving the message today is our interim minister, Nicholas Griffin. And so, Cindy, I hear we have some great news, so...
We have some great news, Reverend Johanna. We have a lot of great news. Sometimes I like to get a little drum roll just to get us ready. Garen? Boom. All right, thank you so much. So hang on tight, there's a lot going on today. First and foremost, 3, 2, 1, action. Have you ever wondered what happens behind the camera? Well, let me just tell you, this can be yours. If you are feeling called to learn about being a camera operator, we are looking for you. And in 10 short minutes, just 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 minutes, Sean is going to teach you everything you need to know about camera operation right after this service. So if this is yours and you're like, yeah, I want to be behind the camera, I want to operate that camera, we are looking for you. Okay, you got that? Who are we looking for? We're looking for you. All right. Next up, homiletics. Homiletics is going to be started. We've got a beautiful class going to be run by our beloved Reverend Margie. Reverend Margie, please rise. Homiletics, you might say to yourself, I don't know what that H word is. Well, homiletics is exactly this, the art of preaching. So you want to get up here and stand behind a microphone? This is for you. You're like, no way do I never want to do that. Not even once in my life. I'm not standing behind a microphone. However, I'm a little bit shy, and you want to learn a little bit more about speaking and just being in public. This is for you. So it's going to be this Wednesday. Every other Wednesday, the class will be being taught right here in the sanctuary from 4 to 5 p.m. with our beloved. Who doesn't want to hang out with Reverend Margie just for an hour anyway, right? So this is it. All right. Next on the agenda, we have our annual town hall meeting. That is next Sunday, 1 week from right here, 1 o'clock in the sanctuary. So we will be welcoming in our new board. We will be having our our reports and everything that you need to know about Unity will be available to you. And it's really your opportunity as members, as congregants, to come forward and share your voice and ask questions, whatever's on your heart. So please join us next Sunday, 1 o'clock for Town Hall. It will be live streamed, so those of you out there in live stream Loveland, this is for you also. And speaking of the board, guess what? We have a new board. We had some elections. And I'd like to take this opportunity to just introduce to you briefly our new board members. Thomas Gallagher is our new board president. Please rise, Thomas. Our new vice president, Chris Vaughn. Please rise, Chris. Our new secretary, our very own Ralph Whitaker. Please rise, Ralph. Our new board treasurer is Debbie Catania, who I believe is in the kitchen sharing the love of her. Yep, thank you, Debbie. Next up, we have our assistant secretary, Salim in the back corner. There he is. Everybody look back and say hi to Salim. Salim Hamid. Thank you, Salim. And our assistant, where are you, Jerry? Treasurer. I know you're here. I saw you earlier. Jerry Denton, are you in the house? Anyway, Jerry Denton was in the house. I saw him earlier. So welcome, Jerry Denton. And also to our remaining, there's Jerry walking in. Our remaining board members, please allow yourselves to rise. There's Jerry. There's Jan right there. Kathy Whitmore, I know you're watching Lovestream. Joanne was here earlier this morning. So we want to thank our incoming board. We want to also give a big mahalo to our outgoing board for all of their hard service. Really, really, thank you so much. And now we have a special announcement, a sacred announcement from our beloved Margie.
Thank you, Cindy. We hold dear in our hearts in this community Sister Joan Chatfield, a sister of the Mary Knoll Order. You may not have heard, but Sister Joan passed away on March 1st. Her memorial service was just this past Thursday, and she happens to now reside right up the road at Diamond Head Memorial Park, should you feel called to go and visit her still. Joan was dear here in this community. She had spoken from this platform a number of Sundays over the years. She's been involved in interfaith work here in Honolulu and in the islands for a very long time. A voice of finding that commonality no matter where and how we worship. She taught in many high schools here in the islands. She was a professor at Chaminade. She was a force of nature. I invite you to hold Sister Joan's birth family, nieces and nephews who live on the mainland, in your hearts, and her family of her Mary Knoll sisters as you remember her this coming week in your prayers. We bid her a loving and fond aloha. And I believe Nicholas has some words for us this morning as well.
Okay. Just very briefly, folks, thank you for coming yesterday. Some of you, we had a good time, I thought, together yesterday morning here in the sanctuary. I'd just like to remind you that we're going through, as if you needed reminding, a transition in this church, a forward movement, we trust. I sent you a letter 2 or 3 weeks ago, I trust most of you got it, trying to explain roughly what I thought was in store as we move forward. We're going to be inviting some specialists in to work with us. Some of the executives from Unity Worldwide Ministry will be here in a few days now to be with you for a week or two to offer you assessment and support. But what I'm trying to say really is that during this time of transition, guess what? We really do need your support. Let us not be blatant and talk about money on Sunday mornings, but yes. If you are supporting the church, and I know you are, please consider increasing a little bit your giving during this transitional period. Be absolutely sure whether you give $1 or $1 million doesn't make any difference, I trust, to the welcome you get here and what you learn in our company. But if you are supporting the church, as I know most of you are, please just consider a little increment in your giving over the next few weeks and months, because it is a costly process to bring people in, as you know, from the mainland and have consultants come visit us. But in the long term, it's going to be very, very much for the benefit of this church, and I think truly will secure its future. So thank you again for your consideration. Thank you.
you are me, we are one. And in this unity, we will live in harmony, and peace will come, 'cause we are one.
Well, you know, this is the moment during our service, as a rule, when we do set aside a little time for the contemplation of the thought for the week. This is an affirmation that we can use, that we can share, and that will help us, I hope, through the days of our week ahead as they unfold. Our theme this morning really is letting go and letting God. We'll develop this together in a few minutes, but I'd like us just to concentrate on that for a little while together and take into our hearts and minds, into what we call consciousness in unity, a very special thought and affirmation that will confirm our need to let go sometimes and just let Spirit do its work around us. It can be a great relief when we have been struggling, facing perhaps a situation that we thought even insoluble, just to step back for a second or two and just let go and see what Spirit does and has in store for us, because we can be sure that for every challenge there is the right and proper solution if we're willing to listen and perhaps give it time. So let's just relax as we do. Breathe in easily and deeply. Just bring in that beautiful breath of life. Feel that breath of life as we take it in. And just hold it for a second and then release it. And as we release that breath, we let go with it any stress or strain or anxiety that we may have brought with us here to this place this morning. We don't need that. So we breathe in, we hold the breath, and then we let it go. We do this for a couple of times. In and hold and let go. And our thought for the week reflects this practice as we affirm, I let go, I let God. Should we say that together, please? I let go, I let God. Again, I let go, I let God. And let's think for a second what this means in our lives at the moment. Is there something that I really need to let go, to stop worrying about for just a little while, perhaps? A situation, a relationship, a decision. I just let go. I stop wrestling with it for a moment, and I let God. Let's see what Spirit's action comes up with in our lives. A word, an idea, an action, doesn't matter. Something we may not even expect. Solution we hadn't even thought of. But I let go, I let God. Please say it again with me. I let go, I let God. Let's take that thought into a few moments of silence together and just repeat it quietly and establish it in heart and mind, in consciousness. I let go, I let God. I let go, I let God. So take these words now and determine whether you want to use them regularly during the week ahead. But if you are facing decision, if you are confused possibly about what steps to take, think of the wonder of this utterance, how it enables you to step back, gain a perspective, see the activity of Spirit in yourself, in others, in circumstances. And for this ability, this God-given ability, we do give thanks, truly, in the name and through the power of the Christ in each one of us. Amen.
In heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive our errors as we forgive each other.
your soul impart, 'cause it is on fire. So So take each moment, let it in, and be guided by your spirit all the way home. And praise it all, fly when you fall, and know that you are a gift of God. Sail your ship with your keel deep down in the water, and raise your sail higher and higher. And why don't you live your life and let love run through you? Let your soul embark, 'cause I can see you are on fire. So why don't you sail your ship with your keel deep down in the water, and raise your sail higher and higher? And why don't you live your life and let love run through you? Let your soul embark, 'cause I can see it is on fire. Song for your soul. Thank you. Mahalo.
Well, thank you very much. Mirth moment? Yes. Yeah. Yes. I thought of a rather irreverent one this morning, which I did share. It has to do with letting go, admittedly, releasing and letting go. But little Jimmy was in school, and he was having kind of a bad time. One of the kids was bullying him, and he came home to his mom, who naturally was a Unity student, and he said, "Mom, what am I going to do? This kid is bullying me." And she said, "Well, you know, he's smaller than you, and you don't have to accept what he's doing. Why don't you release him and let him go?" And she explained what she meant by that. And Jimmy sort of nodded, and he took that in, she thought, and he went back to school the next day, came home around 3 o'clock, so excited, "Mom, Mom, Mom, it worked. That kid I was telling you about. Well, I did. I released him and let him go. You know that filthy, smelly old pond outside the school gate? I took him out there and I released him and I let him go right over it. Plan B. What is Plan B? Now, some of you may remember probably the worst B movie ever made. In black and white about 50 years ago. It was called Plan B from Mars. Do you remember that one? It was truly terrible, and even the flying saucers were saucers. You knew somebody had thrown them. Oh, it was bad. But it was the second feature at the drive-in, so you could be reasonably sure nobody saw it. But my wife and I did see it at the 63rd Street Drive-In in Kansas City. We saw it, Plan B from Mars. It was reliably said at that time in Kansas City that half the marriages contracted in that city had their origins in the 63rd Street Drive-In, but such was not the case with my wife and me because we were already married. But I have never forgotten Plan B from Mars, and Plan B, to me today, as I'm going to suggest it to you and introduce it to you, is the third option that we have when we're confronted with the possibility of conflict in our lives. Let's remember that as human beings, we were born centuries and millennia ago into conflict in many instances. We had to fight. The Old Testament is filled with stories of confrontation. Murder on a grand scale, you might say. Many of the other scriptures in other religions are similar. The sword is taken up, and your enemies are slain in their hecatombs. I'm not entirely sure how many in a hecatomb, but you'd have to look it up. But certainly a lot. And if you can't slay them, you run. Fight or flight. If you can't bash them, you run like hell. So these were the alternatives available to us as human beings. Things supposedly grew a little more subtle over the years and centuries, and much of that external activity, the violence and the flight, became internalized. In other words, our confrontations developed a psychological perspective. Much of the fight and the flight took place and began to take place within ourselves. Some studies done not too long ago by several leading universities suggested, and I think very truly, that an enormous amount of damage is done when we suppress and repress. The two are distinct. When we suppress and repress our desires to fight, literally, and our desires to flee. We can't take up a sword as a rule and bash the person that we would like to. We can't flee. How can we leave our mortgages, our car payments, and run away? We'd love to, but we can't. So we're stuck. And so everything becomes internalized. The whole fight, flight scenario becomes internalized. Of course, it does still occur outside of ourselves. We know that there are many causes in the world today that are being literally fought for. Some of them we think justly. And there are other flights that are taking place. Look at the massive number. And it's going to get greater and greater of immigrants who are fleeing violence, poverty, hunger, despair. So fight and flight are still very much with us. But individually speaking, which is the perspective from which I want to come this morning, individually speaking, the third alternative, Plan B, is something that we may choose to employ in our own dealings with life. So what does it mean? Essentially, what Jesus told us it meant. non-resistance. And it's terribly hard for us sometimes to understand that whole notion of non-resistance. Jesus says in Scripture, he tells us, and he tells his disciples on several occasions, he says, you have learned and you were told, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. But what I tell you is this, resist not the man who wrongs you. Non-resistance. In the Garden of Gethsemane, in the very last hours of his earthly life, and as we come up to Easter, we remember that, Jesus had an opportunity to fight those who came to arrest him or to flee. He could easily have fled. He could have spent the rest of his life in a glorious retirement villa in Corsica or Cyprus or somewhere like that in the Mediterranean. What a great idea. I don't think they had condos in those days, but you know. He certainly could have fled. And look, his disciples were ready to defend him. One of them cut off the ear of a guard, and Jesus says right there, put up your sword. Put up your sword. Don't do this. What incredible spiritual and moral courage it took for him to persist in that teaching in the very face of his own presumed extinction. What would you do? What would I do? Well, I'd probably fight for my life or run like hell. Wouldn't that be the sensible thing to do? And he just waits there. Is this cowardice? Or is it moral and spiritual courage of the most unimaginable sort? Jesus is no coward. He's a strong man. You don't do what he did. You don't wander throughout hostile countryside alone very often or with a few disciples as he did, unless you're pretty tough. Pretty tough. Really. So we've got a strong man here. And yet he says, don't resist. And when the end comes, he says, no, don't resist, because he knows that his spiritual truth, his spiritual integrity, his spiritual identity, his oneness with God shall be vindicated through such a stand. He has the courage and the bravery to do that. Is that martyrdom? Did he seek martyrdom? I don't know. Depends on your point of view, I suppose. But to me, he had the moral and spiritual courage to do what he tells us to do. Now, many, many people like to tell us what to do, don't they? Especially teachers of religion. But are they willing to do it themselves? Sometimes they are and sometimes they're not. Jesus indubitably was. He said, okay, try me. Because plan B worked for him. Now, let's be clear. Non-resistance is not necessarily passive resistance. The great Mahatma Gandhi taught his followers forms of resistance that were sometimes condemned because they appeared to involve some sort of passive aggression. For example, he could have his disciples paralyze all the railroads in India just by lying on the railroad lines. It was a very effective kind of a militant action which was construed as non-resistance but was really in many ways passive aggression or passive resistance. Now, he knew the difference very clearly between that form of protest and true non-resistance. He had a name, Satyagraha, which means soul force, which told people how to practice that. But he was interested in the practice of that more on an individual basis. And I think this is where the truth of this whole teaching lies. It really is a matter of individual preference and choice. This is when it comes down to the personal, intimate spiritual discoveries we make concerning life. Are we going to resist in some form or another? Are we going to lie across a railroad? Or are we going to strike, perhaps, in our modern society and refuse to go to work? Is that Is that true non-resistance? Non-resistance is really more subtle than that. It involves removing oneself entirely from any form of encounter that can be construed as obstructive or threatening in any way. It is immensely difficult to practice. Let's not fool ourselves. But it can be remarkably beneficial to us from a psychological standpoint and a spiritual standpoint too. I gave an illustration this morning of how I'd practiced, I thought, non-resistance in a threatening situation. And believe me, it doesn't come naturally to me. I'm a pretty scrappy guy. I was quite hot-tempered when I was young. I was ready to take anybody on. Come on, you know. Try me, you know. All that aggression, male aggression, I don't know what it was, but I was scrappy. And, of course, when it came to running away, I was prepared to do that too. If there were two guys instead of one, where's the exit? So, you know, a little element of cowardice is sometimes self-preservative, but we're talking about something very different here. We're talking about a moral and a spiritual decision that one takes not to become involved in somebody else's agenda of violence and provocation. Very, very, very hard thing to do because we think, well, somehow we've failed. We're going to be judged. We're moral. Was Jesus a moral coward in the garden? I don't think so. But I told the story this morning of what happened to me in California some years ago. It was a road rage incident. This guy was driving a truck and he'd been dodging in and out. And he finally slammed on the brakes, and I nearly hit him. I came to a stop. He got out of the cab. If this had been Florida, he'd have reached for the glove compartment and pulled out his .38, but he didn't, fortunately. And he came out, and he came right up, and he was threatening, yelling, and I don't know whether he was drunk or not. He was just angry. You know, you cut me out to cut me. Well, I don't know whether I did or not. He thought I did. And I thought, well, what do? Do I... You know, do I sort of hit him? Do I sort of aim for his equipment and immobilize him or something? Or you know, do I run and leave the car in the middle of the highway and run down into the... He could run, maybe he could run faster than me. I was a pretty good runner in those days. But I chose, in that moment, I chose non-resistance, total non-resistance. I put my hands up in that universal gesture that we see sometimes adopted for those who don't wish to engage. I just did this. And you know, it kind of blew his mind. I think he was really looking forward to something or other. And he shook his head and he muttered some obscenities. And believe me, I'm pretty used to being called just about anything. In my career, I've encountered, not gentlemen, but I've encountered those who have found me less than credible and explained it to me in rather vivid terms. I was once a chaplain at the state penitentiary in Kansas, so I can tell you. But he just didn't know what to do. He stood there and you could see the poor guy. You know, it was sort of like, I felt sorry for him, actually. He was looking forward to it. And he just sort of defeated, and he turned around, got in the cab, and drove off. Now, I took a chance, because he could have flattened me. I probably would have done, but it's a trivial incident. It's a trivial incident, you know, just one of those things that happens in some states on your way to work just about every morning. But I was aware of it because in life many times I've asked myself, should I adopt the non-resistance stance? Is this something that I want to do? It's usually with something a little more sophisticated than a violent, personal, potentially physical encounter. That's a dramatic way of illustrating it. But usually it happens on a psychological level. I want to fight somebody. I really feel I need to fight somebody. Or they think they need to fight me. Or I'm threatened by somebody and I want to run away from them because I don't like that. And I'm frightened about fighting them. but I don't want to stay around, so I think about running. The fight or flight mechanism is still alive in us, folks. It's part of our, I nearly said, animal heritage. It's been built into us genetically. It's part of our self-preservative, instinctual response to life. Fight or flight. But wait a minute. Jesus lived in one of the most violent societies that we can imagine. Really. I mean, we look at that part of the world today and we say, oh, there's a lot of violence. Nothing compared to what Jesus experienced. The Romans alone were brutal. Brutal. They'd flog you to death just for winking. They'd crucify you if you said the wrong thing. My goodness, you know, it's sort of... There was no one to come to your rescue. In fact, prophets of Jesus' ilk, Jewish prophets, were capable of raising armies to fight the invaders and, incidentally, one another. It's always fun to have a bash at one another while you're at it. So, you know, he was no stranger to unimaginable violence of a physical sort. Well, as I say, over the years, much of what we encounter by way of fight or flight response has become internalized. You say to me, are there not good causes worth fighting for? Yes. Is it not prudent sometimes to run away? Probably. I'm not here to advocate a point of view, folks. I'm not telling you, mercifully in Unity we don't have any doctrine or dogma, so I'm not obliged to tell you what to do. Praise God, you can make your own minds up. But I'm saying, isn't it possible that this idea of non-resistance can be, and I nearly said, a weapon in our armory, which shows you how deeply imbued we are with the fight response, doesn't it? But seriously, the non-resistance option, plan B, can be part of our response to living. I don't think there are many of us here today who haven't had aggressive thoughts about something or somebody, possibly in the recent past. I'm sure there are some of us here who have said, oh my God, I wish I could run away. Haven't you said that? I've said both those things in the last 2 or 3 months. We all do. But somehow standing one's ground quietly and refusing to become involved in that agenda of fear or violence or flight. Nietzsche, the great German philosopher of the end of the 19th century, said this was evidence of the weak morality of Christianity. He said, oh no, we need to be Übermensch, Superman, so that we can smash and crush our opponents. Well, it's a wonderful idea for the Nazis, of course, who took up his ideas. Or we can even run away. He never said that. He was of the smashing forward variety. Poor Nietzsche, bless his heart, he died in a Swiss nursing home. But that's beside the point. But I say, isn't this really something to consider to preserve our own spiritual integrity and peace of mind? Isn't it part of a learning process? Jesus once turned to one of his disciples who was complaining and urging him on to be aggressive. And he said, what is that to thee? What is that to thee? What is that to thee? Don't we have our own business to be about, which is the discovery of this deep, loving, central force within ourselves, which represents acceptance, compassion, cooperation, love even. Sometimes, isn't it a wise idea to think of plan B and to be completely just non-aggressive and non-fearful and say, no, thank you very much. I choose not to participate in this particular drama. You can count me out. Non-resistance, non-resistance. Thank you very much. It's an option. Why not? Now I'll shut up.
Where are we go of the pieces of your broken heart, and let go of the pieces. This life must be so hard. And where are we hiding? Where do we go? Why are we fighting? I wanna know. And where do we come from? Where do we go? Why are we hiding, afraid to grow? Just let it go. Let it go. Go up the lifeline and jump into the sea. You know how to let go, let go, let go. You can be free. Where are you hiding? Where do you go? Why are we fighting? I wanna know. Where do we come from? Where do we go? We are eternal and we are here to grow. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go. Let it go.
Let it go. Thank you. Mahalo.
Woohoo! Friends, can we just give it up one more time for the beautiful Lucy Lynch? Thank you, Lucy. So much love, so much joy. This is the time in our service, and I invite the ushers up, that we get to do that thing that we do, which is to give from the overflow. And friends, this morning, Nicholas was sharing with us that you truly are the givers. And it is in giving that we receive. And we are in a time of transition. And so today, if you're thinking to yourself after church, I'm going to head on down to Starbucks and buy me a latte, I invite you to say, you know what, instead of buying that latte today, I think I'm going to write that into my tithe offering. I'm going to give right here. I'm giving a latte to the United Church of Hawaii. I'm feeling it good. All right. And so it is that energy. It is that energy, that synergy of love and light that we give from, that returns to us tenfold. So friends, as you put your offerings in the tithe baskets today, I invite you to do so with that energy of love, with that energy of giving, with that energy of, yes, I am giving from the overflow. So if you will put your tithes and your offerings upon your heart and repeat after me. I open my heart. I open my heart. I give from the divine overflow. I give from the divine overflow with love and joy. With love and joy. And so it is, friends.
Well, I'm
walking in the Spirit,
and I'm talking
to the Spirit.
I'm learning
from the Spirit,
and I'm turning
to the Spirit.
Well, I'm growing
in the Spirit,
and it's showing
in the Spirit.
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. While I'm walking
in the Spirit,
and I'm talking
to the Spirit.
I'm learning
from the Spirit,
and I'm turning
from the Spirit.
and I'm
growing in the Spirit,
and it's showing
in the Spirit.
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. When I find myself in one of those situations that's leading to some kind of drama or confrontation, I go in and get plugged in,
Oh,
my
yeah.
friend, before it's too late.
It's too late.
Put the Spirit in front of me and make those crooked places straight. I'm
walking in the Spirit.
and I'm talking
to the Spirit.
I'm
learning from the Spirit.
and I'm turning
From the Spirit.
I'm
growing in the Spirit.
and it's showing.
Growing in the Spirit.
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. When I find myself in one of those situations, when I don't know what to do and I've got no explanation, I go within and get plugged in
Oh, yeah.
for revelation. Times out of 9 things will work out fine without my participation.
I'm walking in the Spirit.
And I'm talking
to the Spirit.
I'm learning
from the Spirit.
and I'm turning
To the Spirit.
I'm
growing in the Spirit.
and it's showing.
Growing in the Spirit.
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. I'm walking in the Spirit. I'm
talking to the Spirit.
I'm
learning from the Spirit. I'm turning to the Spirit.
I'm
growing in the Spirit.
I'm
showing in the Spirit.
I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. And I'm
Walking in the Spirit.
and I'm
Talking to the Spirit.
and I'm learning
Learning from the Spirit.
and I'm turning.
Turning to the Spirit.
Well, I'm growing
Growing in the Spirit.
and it's showing up. It's showing. I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. Don't you know that I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me? One more time, and I'm walking with the Spirit in front of me. Yeah. Oh, yes, I am. Woo. Yes, I am. Woo.
Hallelujah.
I hope nobody put anything out. I don't think the chiropractic clinic opens till Monday. We accept no responsibility. Anyway, I just wanted to thank you for your giving and
I don't have
How can you bless it if you're way over there?
thank you so much for giving to our church. Isn't it wonderful we can have a laugh? You know, that's tremendous, isn't it? Shows you what real fun we have together. And, you know, the joy of spirit is so important. And we celebrate it, and we do give thanks, all of us together, for these wonderful gifts, so freely given here this morning. No compulsion, freely given, because they're the support for our beautiful community. And we see them going forward now only to support the will and the work of Spirit in this same community. And in the name of the Christ Spirit in each one of us, we say thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen.
Okay, and thanks to each and every one of you for making this such a spirit-filled, spirit-led service. And so let's give ourselves a round of applause for that. And thanks for participating with Zamar today. And this service and this church's just mission is not possible without your support. So whether it's showing up to Sunday services, volunteering, we have a lot of people that come together each and every week to make this machine work, to make this spiritual community work. So thanks to each and every one of the volunteers and staff members for saying yes to the call. And we also have individuals that have said yes to the call of chaplaincy. So our chaplains are here to hold the high watch with you. If you want something, if you have a prayer on your heart and like prayer support, our chaplains are here to do that. They hold everything in the strictest of confidence. And so please see them after today's service if you want prayer support. And now let us rise, let us stand to sing the peace song and Aloha Oi.
Each other.